Let's talk about the Bulls 3-team trade. If you want to throw that graphic upstairs so everybody can see what we're talking about. You have a Bulls, Pistons, Blazers 3-team deal.
Okay.
And walk us through this, Will, as far as who gets what, and then we can talk about why each team might do this.
So, yeah, for all these teams and all these trades, I kind of wanted to just make trades that I wanted to see happen. So, like, some of the stuff has been kind of speculated. Obviously, Mikal Bridges and the Rockets, the number 1 pick. Like, some of this stuff is kind of out there, but I just put the details together. But for the Bulls specifically, what I wanted them to do was get some picks and kind of move towards the future and create some cap space. So, we talked about this a while back. It was 5 and Isaiah Stewart for Zach LaVine at 11. It's kind of a variation of that. But instead of getting Isaiah Stewart, which I was kind of running through some of these with some friends, and they were like, giving up Isaiah Stewart is too much. So I pulled him off, and the Bulls get the number 7 pick and the number 14 pick. The Blazers get the number 5 pick, so they move up 2 spots. They get the protected lottery pick back from the Bulls, and then 2 additional second-round picks. So they move up 2 spots in the draft, regain all of their future flexibility to make trades, and then pick up a couple of second-round picks. And then the Pistons move back to 11 from 5 and pick up Zach LaVine. So basically, they slide down 6 spots to get a shot at an all-star. The Blazers move up 2 spots, get their flexibility back for the price of moving off of their pick number 14. And then the Bulls get themselves 2 picks in the lottery. They move up, and they get an additional 14th pick, which kind of helps them get some young players in there. But I think the guys that I drafted can also really help them now. And we talked about both of them yesterday who were linked in a workout with the Bulls earlier this week. So I think it just kind of made sense. And I feel like it is pretty fair for all sides.
Yeah, so in the mock, after this trade goes through, the Bulls with pick 7 and 14 in next Wednesday's draft, you have them taking Ron Holland, the G League Ignite prospect, at 7, and then Kyle Filipowski from Duke at number 14. You mentioned in your explanation on these hypothetical trades that LaVine's value is negative and there is a limited market. You would consider this a win of a trade for the Bulls to basically salary dump Zach LaVine and going from having 1 pick in the top half of the first round to having 2 picks in the top half.
And you move off of some additional like lower level assets, but you don't actually cut into any of your own first round picks. Obviously, that Blazers one, who knows whether it conveys. That could end up just being a second, and then 2 of your own future seconds, in order to completely wipe LaVine off the books. And then you also move up in the draft and pick up another thing. Like, this is probably too good to be true. I don't think that the Bulls could actually get this much. But I feel like that's kind of where his value is right now. And if the Bulls could turn that into a ton of cap space to be able to use their mid-level exception and 2 young players, Filipowski and Ron Holland, who I think can both obviously be like good players down the line, but also contribute now and help this team, which is what they want to accomplish. So all of a sudden, to me, like if you bring in 2 upside rookies, bringing back DeMar, and you've moved off of Zach, bringing back DeMar makes a little bit more sense to me.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to like find ways to rationalize what I think is going to happen by like coming up with trades that I would both like to see and also I think that makes sense.
Yeah. I think the Detroit one really makes sense, and I think it makes more sense now that Monty Williams has been let go.
Yep.
So Trey Gillane might be looking for something to kind of jumpstart interest, you know what I'm saying, and get some juice going on in that kind of organization. But also I'm looking at when they make those trades, like the guys in front that you kind of have. And, it's Montes you have going, Portland, and you got Basketball Joey, a.k.a. Reed Shepherd, going to Charlotte. Why do you think that would be the case when they already have a guy like LaMelo Ball?
You're asking specifically about Reed?
Reed Shepherd, yes.
So Reed, I had Reed going 6 to Charlotte. A lot of people mock him to the Rockets at 3, and I think that makes a lot of sense. In this mock draft, I traded the 3rd pick to Brooklyn for Mikal Bridges and some other stuff. So I had the Nets moving up and taking Stephon Castle, which pushed Reed down. I think Reed is a really special prospect because he can play on and off the ball.
Sure.
So I think he actually works really well next to LaMelo, who can also play on and off the ball. Great weak side defender. LaMelo is obviously like much longer and can guard bigger players, although he's got some work to do on that end. Great shooter. Like I think he's kind of the perfect secondary guard to have. And so you could see him in a situation where he is a little bit more ball dominant, but I think he also would succeed more quickly in a role where he doesn't necessarily have to be, running pick and roll every time down. Although I think he could, and LaMelo could play off of him, or one's on the bench, the other one's kind of running the show. So I think that fit actually makes a lot of sense. And Gavoni from ESPN reported in his mock draft today that 3 to 6 is kind of the range, and 6 is probably the floor for Reed. So it felt like it made sense with the Spurs taking Risache at 4, the Blazers moving up to get Matas Buzelis. Like, the Blazers aren't going to take another guard. They've got Scoot, they've got Shaedon Sharp. The Nets, maybe they take him, maybe the Spurs take him, but I just feel like Risache falling to 4 into the laps of the Spurs where they can pair those two French guys, that just makes a lot of sense to me. So that's how I went. But Reed is much higher on my personal big board for sure.
People in the comments chiming in. Our guy, French Bulls TV, what up, buddy? Saying, I love this trade. Don't want Holland, though. Connect would be nice. In this new mock you have Dalton Connect going 12 to OKC, so the Bulls would miss out on him, and instead going with Filipowski at 14. Fish calling this trade definitely a win. Also pointing out that the Blazers pick is never coming here, which is why I think, like, when you're talking about what the Bulls are giving up in a trade scenario like this, obviously you're giving up Zach LaVine, but also getting off of Zach LaVine. You're turning 11 into 7 and 14. You're giving up a couple of second-round picks, and you're just sending back a pick that probably is conveying to you as a second-round pick 4 years from now. It doesn't feel like a lot to give up.
It doesn't. And look, like, that Blazers pick is a first-round pick. It could potentially be as high as 15, but obviously no better than that for the Bulls.
The Blazers magically become a playoff team again.
Yeah, but and I think they will. Like, they have been, kind of bottoming out these last 2 years. And I think that this year is probably going to be the last year of that, where they're trying to, tank for Cooper Flag. And then after that, I think there will be some pressure from ownership on Joe Cronin to start to get this thing more towards rebuilding. And so you've got basically, the 24-25 season to tank, the 25-26, 6-7, and 7-8 to get themselves back in the playoffs. I think it's possible that happens, but for the Bulls, the opportunity cost of getting off of all that money, making it look like you had a big win in terms of draft capital coming in because you're getting those 2 secured first-round picks, but actually not really getting any first-round picks, maybe 1, and just giving up those 2 extra seconds to get that deal done. So for the Blazers, it's having that pick back allows them to, okay, you've got Scoot, you've got Shaedon Sharp, I've got them taking Buzelis, I've got them getting back into the first round and taking Khalil Ware. So you've got this core of guys that you think can be really good. Now you've also got all your picks, and you can start to make moves to complement them and kind of kickstart the rebuild around the core that they've already drafted and gotten in that way. So I think it actually makes sense for them. I think the value of getting their own pick back and having that flexibility does count for something, even if it's it does end up eventually being a second round pick. Yeah. I would understand why the value on face doesn't look the same, but I do think it makes sense in this situation because it's going back to the team that originally traded the pick away.
We all silly like the mayor.